community on earth. If you take that away and try to distill us just down to white folks, we'll be like Europe, an aging, slowly dying former empire. The Roman Empire didn't survive because it didn't have enough strength in its diversity. It suppressed its diversity and it died. If the U.S. wants to be the Roman Empire, keep voting the way you're voting, y'all. Keep voting for people like each community on earth. If you take that away and try to distill us just down to white folks, we'll be like Europe, an aging, slowly dying former empire.
Good morning. Rise and freedom. I'm Austin Peterson. You're watching and listening to the Wake Up America show on the 4 Liberty Network. We're so glad and thankful to have you here. What's up, Nelson, Dadbot, Cecilia, T-Mill, Will Run Riot, Kermode Bear, Amy J.E.'s, Mr. Southcott. Good to see you. JJ4884 hanging out over in the chat. Hey, guys. Smash that like button. If you're a regular guest, you know what to do. If you're watching us today for the very first time on the Wake Up America show, well, if you enjoy the content, click the follow button. Come back and join us. It's a 5-day-a-week show, Mondays through Fridays, except for this week because, well, baby, we're going to be in Washington, D.C., girl. Monday through Friday, normal schedule. This week, it's the APDC Liberty Tour. The APDC Liberty Tour happening this week, which means no show Wednesday, no show Thursday. But we will be doing a special show live Friday morning, if I can figure out the tech. Please, God, let it work. Friday morning from Washington, D.C. as I bring all of our friends together and we gather in Washington, D.C. for a 3-day special Wake Up America show for Liberty Network tour. You guys, I've got the t-shirts ready. Yeah. Cecilia, Amy, they're going to be there. What about you? Quest Fanning is going to be there as well. If you want details on the trip, you can read them all at 4libertyshop.com. You might want to head over there anyway, guys, and just go ahead and unlock the bonus content because today we have an amazing mini documentary for you today that is about a new city, a new ancient city that has been discovered thanks to the use of a new technology down in the jungles of Mesoamerica. So if you guys want to unlock today's bonus content and get that mini documentary, you can do so by either doing Rumble Rants live during the show, or you can go to 4libertyshop.com where you see our beautiful, delicious boxes of Founding Flavors coffee right there. It's not focused on that because it's focused on me, as a good camera lens should be. But you can get that 4Liberty Shop coffee again at 4libertyshop.com. Help to unlock the bonus content. And if we hit $75 raised by the end of the show, you get to see our amazing 5-minute mini documentary that I produced just for you guys instead of commercials. It's a way better thing, even though I do have a new commercial today. So, been freshening things up. Did you like the new intro video? Good. Will Run Riot. We're sad we won't be able to see you, but hopefully we are going to see you at the documentary film shoot next month, which is coming up again real soon. Yeah. The war of the sexes playing out in Generation Z harder than I've ever seen it. The gulf between Generation Z men and women on political and cultural issues is far wider than it is in older generations. I saw this meme going around. It's not just politics. It's a question of just basic understandings for what the other sex is really after or what they really want, which of course has been the crux of the war of the sexes and the debates that we've been having for centuries that have been going on. But a meme which was posted online showed a man in 2 states of health. One showed him, strong, but, looking kind of normal, didn't have ripped abs. And then on the right photograph, he had a photograph of him where he was cut, he was ripped, he had all these abs, and women were saying that they universally preferred the guy on the left to the guy on the right, and a lot of men were saying they don't believe them. And I didn't have a strong opinion. I kind of like went both ways on it, right? Is this, stated preferences versus revealed preferences? A lot of people said they didn't believe women when they said that they wanted a little more comfortable looking guy than a guy who looked shredded. Some people were saying that it was gay coded for guys to say that they think that women prefer guys who are just absolutely cut and shredded. And I just really don't, it's hard. I could go either way on that one. So you know what? I'm just going to have to hear your thoughts on it today as I share with you this story. Young men and women are taking the gender gap, not the thigh gap, guys, to staggering new levels. So it's a new poll that came out showing the gulf between Generation Z men and women on political and cultural issues. And it's, again, they're far wider than they have been for older generations. And I was talking to someone over the weekend about their upcoming nuptials. They're getting married here very soon, and they're in their 20s. And I was like, congratulations. You actually found somebody in your age range, in your 20s, that you're happy with. You're going to be able to start a family a lot younger than I was able to do so, because it took me, 37, 38 years to find my partner, Stephanie. I think we met when I was 37, 38. And then by the time we were to get together, buy a house, start a family, I'm pushing 40. And, here I am, 44 years old. I know JJ4884 was concerned that the AI had made me look much more gray than I actually am. But maybe you're wondering, does he use just for men? Maybe he does. Maybe he doesn't. I do. People are like, Austin, you're egotistical, you're arrogant, you're vain. It's true, but I'm not a liar. I will not lie. Good morning, pineapples.
Good morning, pineapple.
Looking very good, very nice.
Good
Good.
morning, pineapple. Looking very good, very nice.
Next story. Not that story, but this story. Majority of Americans trust what's online less than ever before. People are like, oh, this is a bad thing. I actually think this is a good thing. The average American trusts less than half of what they see and read online. Americans believe only 40% of what they consume online is totally accurate, fact-based, and created by a real human. Honestly, I actually think that is too high. 41% to me is too high. In fact, they also believe that 23% is completely false and purposely inaccurate or misleading, while 36% say it falls somewhere in between. Honestly, I think that's too low. 3/4 say they trust the internet less today than ever before. Good. Another 78% agree that the internet, quote, has never been worse when it comes to differentiating between what's real and what is artificial. Okay, for sure. To put things into perspective, the average American comes across information that they know or suspect was generated by AI about 5 times per week. Really? For me, it's like dozens of times per day, with 15% indicating it's more than 10 times. Social media posts, news articles, and chatbots are the top 3 most likely culprits when it comes to AI-generated or misleading content. In fact, those polled believe that 50% of the news stories and articles they come across online have some element of AI, whether it be images or the actual written content. Interesting. Well, I wonder why people would not believe what they hear or see in the media or online anymore. What could be causing things like that?
White House Correspondents Association is as necessary as ever. President Biden's decline and its cover-up by the people around him is a reminder that every White House, regardless of party, is capable of deception. But being truth tellers also means telling the truth about ourselves. We, myself included, missed a lot of this story, and some people trust us less because of it. We bear some responsibility for faith in the media being at such lows. I say this because acknowledging errors builds trust, and being defensive about them further erodes it. We should have done better.
I mean, it's so just boo. Don't you just wish you could have been there just to boo these guys? This is Axios, Alex Thompson. Axios, one of the biggest like left-wing disinformation running cover for the Democrats, political operations, posing as a news organization that there is out there. And now they're all trying to act like they weren't all conspiring against the American people with the cover-up of Joe Biden's infirmity in the White House and this kind of stuff. I mean, why do people not believe what they see or read online? Honestly, I'm glad that they're doing it. I'm glad that they are. I'm glad more Americans are not believing everything that they see. It's not just AI. Are those real Legos that you made into that picture, Austin? No, they're not real. Itchy McGroin, we're hate to see you go, brother, but we hope you'll come back again tomorrow. Zed the Head over in the chat says, they frame everything to fit the narrative of the day. Yes, thank you. Oh, hey, guys. You could send us a text, by the way, on the show at 573-319-1586. I love if I actually turn my face away from the camera. That's actually a really good effect. If I turn my face away from the camera, then the coffee comes into greater focus. Look at that. And if I look at this, if I turn my face towards, hold on. There we go. Look at that. That's how you know you got a good lens. Thanks, Andy. Right now, watch. Let's see. I'll turn it away. They can't see my face anymore. Oh, look at that. Then the coffee is in. They got the coffee in there. Nice. There we go. Cool. Let's unlock the bonus content, guys. Drop those Rumble rants. Let's get it started. We want to hit that $75 total by the end of the show so I can feel like a man. And so that we can unlock the bonus content today. You give a little, you get a little. Nelson65 says that they thought that we were stupid and couldn't see for ourselves. They were hoping you were stupid, and it really backfired on them. If you'd like to send us a text, by the way, guys, and talk to me this morning, send me clips or news stories or perhaps even guests that you would like to see on the Wake Up America show, then send me a text at 573-319-1586. That's 573-319-1586. That's the text line. If you'd like to contact the show, let us know what's on your mind again. One more time, 573-319-1586. America's favorite beers revealed. We're going to find out which is the most popular in your state. That's a fun story. And the exact amount of vacation time that you need for peak mental and physical health, according to experts. But have you ever been there? As if you need an excuse to book a well-deserved trip, there are many health benefits to taking one. The many health benefits of packing a bag and getting on a flight have long been reported, but however, according to a recent study that reviewed previous findings, there are immediate effects on one's mental and physical health than previously thought. Yeah, that's right. We're going to be together in D.C., baby. We're going this week for the APDC Liberty Tour. I think you could write a song out of that. One study found that vacationers who took a trip once a year for several consecutive years, 9 to be exact, increased their longevity by approximately 20%. Wow. Those same people also reduced their risk of dying from heart-related conditions by 30%. Wow. So how would you like to have a reduced risk of dying from a heart-related condition by 30%? How would you like to increase how would you like to increase your longevity by 20%? Join us in D.C. this week for the APDC Liberty Tour. There you go. We're going to have a great show today. So, we've also got John Miltimore joining us live at 8 a.m. Central Time this morning for Mondays with Miltimore. Forget ACDC. APDC is where it's at. Exactly. Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Real quick, let's get our update from the White House on the MAGA Minute.
Hello, everybody. It has been a very productive week here at the White House, so let's roll through it for the MAGA Minute. The President and the First Lady hosted the annual Easter Egg Roll with more than 40,000 guests in attendance from across the country. The President welcomed a group of wounded veterans and heroes into the Oval Office and met with the Prime Minister of Norway at the White House. It was also another big week for investments in the United States. Bayer, Chevron, Coinbase, Roche, Toyota, GM, and Chobani all announced investments in the United States, opening offices and pouring billions of dollars into creating businesses and American jobs. And a major win for the MAHA movement, Secretary of Health and Human Services Kennedy announced that 8 artificial food dyes would be phased out of medication and food by the end of 2026. Attorney General Pam Bondi launched a task force to eradicate anti-Christian bias from our institutions. Our border continues to be the most secure it has ever been in our nation's history, with the Wall Street Journal even touting our massive successes. Next week marks 100 historic days of the Trump administration. We have a lot in store for you, so stay tuned, and we'll see you for next week's MAGA Minute.
I like it, a MAGA Minute. I mean, you know, not too keen on Secretary Kennedy banning things that, are really shouldn't be underneath his purview, in my opinion. I don't think one person really ought to have that power. But no person is above the law. Remember that?
The idea that no person is above the law is a bedrock principle of American justice.
No man is above the law, no matter what the crime.
And I agree with you. No man is above the law. No person is above the law.
No one is above the law.
No one is above the law.
No one's above the law.
No one is above the law.
No man is above the law.
Nobody is above the law.
No one is above the law.
No man is above the law.
He has to be held accountable. He's not above the law.
No one's above the law. Either that nor any other title puts you above the rule of law.
No one is truly above the law.
That is what it means to have a rule of law. That is what it means to not have a king.
They're not above the law.
Nobody is above the law.
Everyone will be treated, as Merrick Garland has said, as equally.
Well, that no one is above the law, which is foundational.
No one is above the law, even a former president. We have one set of laws in this country, and they apply to everyone.
Oh, except for judges who harbor criminal illegal aliens in their homes. Those people can never be arrested. They're above the law.
Above the law.
The law is the law, and no one should be above it.
Yes, nobody is above the law. No one is above the law.
No one else is above the law, including a president.
Nobody is above the law.
What about judges?
Oh, you can't have 2 justice systems in America. It has to be one justice system. And anybody who breaks the law should be held accountable.
And that no one is above the law.
No one is above the law, and our president is not above the law. I always thought that this country, that no one was above the law, especially the president.
What about judges? Come on. This time it's different. Capital D in quotation marks, different. Thank you, Amy J. Eves, for that. No one is above the law unless it is coming after them. Yes. We're going to hear from John Miltimore with his thoughts on the arrest of a judge who was arrested for harboring a criminal illegal alien in their home. What is wrong with you?
He is being treated no better or worse than anyone else. This is not selective prosecution. That this is not somebody who's singled out. That he is being treated just like anyone else. That is what it means to have a rule of law. That is what the Justice Department...
Well, look at how he's smiling. When Trump is arrested, this is what he sounds like. And then when a judge is arrested...
...is really signaling and messaging here is that everyone will be treated, as Merrick Garland has said, as equally in this country. This is really a great day for America. So there has been a violation here that we know for sure, and it is not the judge. Right, exactly. You don't do it. Even if you thought that there was a ground for doing this, the judgment call that you thought that this is the case to bring, it tells you everything. There is no adult in the room who would have said, "Are you kidding me? Why would you possibly do this?" And the answer is because we want to send a signal to the judiciary. And that's what you shouldn't be doing.
Okay, you shouldn't be. But I thought no one was above the law, sir. No one is above the law. What is it with CNN every once in a while actually dropping a nugget of truth every once in a while here, guys?
Looking at the complaint, let's strip the politics out of it. This is a crime. If they can prove what happened here, it is a crime. This judge, let's strip the Trump of it all out. Let's strip the immigration of it all out. Let's say law enforcement shows up at a building with an arrest warrant. They're looking for person A. Person B then says, "Hey, there's a secret escape door out back. I'm going to show you the way," and then ushers that person out the back door. That is textbook obstruction. Looking at the complaint, let's strip the politics out of it. This is a crime. If they can prove what happened here, it is a crime. This judge, let's strip the Trump of it all out. Let's strip the immigration of it all out. Let's say law enforcement shows up at a building.
Okay, you're stripping the Trump of it out. You're stripping the immigration out of it, which kind of like it's a little important to this story. But you know, the problem, of course, is that judges are the people who are in government are supposed to always obey the law. But what happens when the law is corrupt? What happens when the law is wrong? That is a problem that we got to discuss here, guys, because just because something is legal doesn't make it moral. But in terms of enforcing immigration law, I guess it depends on the person that they're deporting. Here's the truth. If they're deporting an MS-13 violent gang member, then yeah, that judge needs to go to jail. But if they're deporting Pablo, who's done nothing but pick our delicious blueberries, that's a completely different story. And sorry, guys, but I'm not the, murder all illegal immigrants right-wing Republican that so many of you would like me to be. I just happen to think that people who come here to do crimes and to break the law and to harm people and to steal and commit theft, they're the ones who should go home. And we ought to probably find a way to let Pablo pick blueberries without having to be, protected by a judge in his home and have to go through all of that rigmarole. So I guess it does. You know what the answer is? It depends. Who is it that they're actually protecting and defending and deporting? But if you're the government, you're supposed to always obey the law. Well, but the law is no excuse. I was just obeying orders is no excuse, right, guys? We can't let put our blinders on, even during a situation where it's something that we actually agree with. We have to always try and remember to keep these principles that we have consistent, that what is moral may not be illegal, what is illegal may not be moral, what is moral may not be constitutional, and there the twain shall meet. Moral, legal, constitutional. Are judges supposed to obey the law? Yes. What if the law is immoral? Big question there. Should they go to jail? Probably still, but in that sense, it causes the American people to sit back and question and ask themselves, does the law need to be changed? And if so, then let's change the law. Want to hear your thoughts on that one. Don't forget to click the like button as well, guys. Support the Wake Up America show with your Rumble rants. Let's get them started. What happens usually is action brings action. So if you drop $1, somebody drops $1, then I think other people will as well. Open up your wallets and your hearts to support the Wake Up America show and work towards unlocking the bonus content. Our little mini documentary today tells the story of a new ancient city that has been found thanks to new technology that's being implemented. So you want to check that out. You don't want to miss that. And it's way more fun, of course, than watching commercials. So let's get a Rumble rant dropped in there, guys, so we can work towards that $75 goal. Oh, yes. I saw Stephanie say that we did sell a box of coffee or bag of coffee earlier, Revere's Rebel Roast. So we actually are $21 raised towards the $75 goal. So we're well on our way there.
One of the things that I think should really be highlighted here is the case against the judge. It's unusual, but it's not unprecedented. There has been a case like this before in 2019 during the first Trump administration, charging a judge in Massachusetts who was accused of something very similar, trying to usher someone out of that courtroom as ICE officials were waiting for that defendant. In that case, that ended up being resolved. Those charges were dropped in the Biden administration against that judge in Massachusetts, but she ended up cutting a deal. So it was a legitimate case there as well. One of the things...
Okay, there we go. I mean, it's interesting. You don't typically hear that kind of stuff from CNN. Here's Scott Jennings' take on it.
You have the right to get an arrest warrant, and you have the right to get a summons. And that they got an arrest warrant for a judge shows that they wanted to make this a spectacle. Last point I want to make is I presented to a grand jury and indicted a state prosecutor. I indicted a prosecutor. And I got a summons because I didn't want to make a spectacle. They made a spectacle of this case.
Well, they announced it on X as well, and then deleted it, but announced it on X.
Why wouldn't you want to make a spectacle of it? I mean, the fact of the matter is there are liberal Democrat elected officials, not all judges, some are mayors and others, all over this country who have said repeatedly since Donald Trump became the president that they would like to obstruct his principles and his program when it comes to deporting illegal immigrants. Here you have this person. If these facts are proven true, obviously that's exactly what she was trying to do here. Why wouldn't you want
Let
to
me
make?
respond to that.
Why, well, let me.
Yeah.
Why? Because
You asked me a question, let me respond.
Well, let me tell you my view. The
Okay.
spectacle is important
Yeah.
because a message has to be sent to everybody else. We're not going to put up. You've been elected by people to uphold the law. And some of the laws that have been most flagrantly violated in this country are immigration laws. You've got to get on board with upholding all the laws, not just
Let
the
me
ones you like.
respond, Scott.
Here's the reason.
Okay, that Kash Patel is head of the FBI.
You said you had to.
It's an embarrassment.
Let me just respond to something.
Yeah,
you said,
go ahead.
Which is that you said, well, you got to worry about the impact on the community.
Yes.
The president and the Justice Department and his people have to worry about the impact of illegal immigration on the country because nobody's been worried about that for years. And the reason this is important is because this is one of Donald Trump's biggest criminal justice priorities. And frankly, it's one of the American people's biggest priorities to control this. And you know well, there are people all over towns, all over this country who have been working overtime to try to stop him from executing on this agenda. If she turns out to be one of them, a spectacle is warranted so other people will stop doing it.
I appreciate, Scott, you saying if she turns out to be one of them, because I
She's
think
doing-
that
she's
it is very
doing
much
work.
something that we will see what happens in
It's
this
a
case. But
smart dude, Scott Jennings, over on CNN. Thanks, guys, for all the Rumble rants. We're well on our way to hit our bonus content. I'm going to go do a real quick count of it so we can see where we're at. Because before John Miltimore arrives this morning, I want to make sure that if we've hit the $75 goal, that you guys can watch that instead of commercials. So in order to have that, I'll play a quick little commercial, brand new commercial. Hope you guys enjoy it, and we'll be right back. When the Founding Fathers dreamed of liberty, they forgot one thing: coffee. Introducing Founding Flavors Coffee, the brew that built America, and the brew that's fueling a new revolution, one kitchen at a time. Small batch roasted, Patriot approved, and disappearing faster than a red coat at Yorktown. Don't get left behind, soldier. Real patriots are starting their mornings with Founding Flavors. And trust us, freedom tastes better with a fresh cup in your hand. Stop drinking those tyrant brews who take your money and don't support your values. Stocks are limited, demand is booming, and your morning deserves a taste of liberty. Order now at forlibertyshop.com before the next shipment gets signed, sealed, and sold out. Founding Flavors Coffee, the official brew of morning rebellions everywhere. Get yours at forlibertyshop.com.
Are you tired of the strange radioactive effects of leftist culture? Do you ever wonder what happened to good old-fashioned American values? Well, fear no more, because there's a new force fighting back against the cultural rot of today. Introducing Culturama, a right-of-center talk show that's taking back the future today. Hosted by none other than blonde bombshell herself, Daniela Pensack. She's not just talking, she's taking culture back. With sharp takes, brilliant guests, and a few surprises along the way. Tune in to the live video podcast twice a week, because the future doesn't have to be weird. It can be Culturama.
If there wasn't going to be somebody who was a fiery champion of liberty, somebody who would get out there and who would be aggressive, and if they wouldn't do it with more fire or passion than I had, then I would go and I would fight this battle for us. I've fought for the principles that we all share. Parties tend to be secondary to me. We're here because we believe in the principles of liberty. I am not a perfect messenger, but I think I'm a damn good one. This is a replica of our first president's flintlock pistol. You have my full support, my respect, and my gun.
think that at the heart of my philosophy is much more libertarianism than well, that's the fashionable word these days, I guess. A conservative is no longer just that. He's a libertarian and always has been.
Yet any time you and I question the schemes of the do-gooders, we're denounced as being against their humanitarian goals. They say we're always against things, we're never for anything.
And what is fascism? Fascism is private ownership, private enterprise, but total government control and regulation.
Well, the trouble with our liberal friends is not that they're ignorant. It's just that they know so much that isn't so. If we lose freedom here, there's no place to escape to. This is the last stand on earth. This is the issue of this election. Whether we believe in our capacity for self-government or whether we abandon the American Revolution and confess that a little intellectual elite in a far distant capital can plan our lives for us better than we can plan them ourselves.
So I found this poll going around on Twitter the other day, and I find it a very fascinating thing. So I think it tells us a lot about the difference between men and women. So this chap, William, here, posts this poll saying, the first reply to this is a picture of Ollie Murs, never heard of him, before and after a 12-week gym transformation. Do you think he looks better before or afterwards? And men overwhelmingly said afterwards, and women even more overwhelmingly said before. Now, here's the picture, and I mean, just as a man, which one would I rather look like? And the answer is, of course, the one on the right. The one on the right isn't a great photo, though. In fact, the one on the left isn't a brilliant photo either. People found better photos of him, and some of the women said, oh yeah, actually he does look better on the right if the light's better and it is less sort of directly above him. But a lot of women, as you can see, were like, well, before. And the men seem to have trouble accepting this. Like, this Joshua Rayner chap says, look, any man who's been 10% body fat or below can tell you women turn into rabid dogs around you. Women lie about their preferences, but they're actually not lying as much here because the after picture is so distorted by focal length and lighting, it looks worse. So his face is narrower, elongated, his hairline looks worse, more wrinkles, terrible shadows, and his body looks more rectangular. And that, I think, is true. I mean, that was just really bad lighting on that photo, right? Put him in the sun with an angle and he looks significantly better. That's true, but I still think women generally would prefer the guy on the left for reasons that are actually not related to the looks, as it were. Because men are, of course, very visual creatures. We are very concerned with how things look. And if there's one thing I've learned as a not very fit, not very good-looking guy who's always had girlfriends, is that women's concern about your looks is actually a reasonably small proportion of whether they find you attractive. Mm-hmm. And I know that there are going to be people who say, no, that's not true. And I promise you, bro, that is absolutely true. And
it is. If men had to worry about their looks then, as much as women do, then I think we'd be in trouble. Although I think there is an argument to be made for the other side. I could successfully argue that looks are actually more important for the ladies. Good morning, Pineapples. Welcome to the Wake Up America Show. I'm your host, Austin Peterson. You see that pinned link in the chat? You can see the description on Rumble of the Wake Up America Show's new sponsor, shopcpp.com. They have generously stepped in to sponsor the Wake Up America Show. And I wanted to tell you a little bit about their mission. If you're looking for freedom, health, and a little extra pep in your step, don't ban food dyes. Get those trusted treatments and believe that Big Pharma has given us a blessing. Can you bless me with something, Big Pharma? For trusted treatments for erectile dysfunction and sildenafil, to essentials like ivermectin, weight loss products, and a whole lot more, check out our sponsor, shopcpp.com. They've got Senforce 100, Camagra, and even oral jelly. Yep, it's exactly what it sounds like, and yes, it works. If you need a little help slimming down, they've got heavy hitters like Ozempic, Fitaro, and Mounjaro, and right now they're on sale with big-time discounts. The site's super easy to navigate, so you can browse, search, and find exactly what you need fast, all at your fingertips. Shop CPP specializes in products mostly for erectile dysfunction, gentlemen. Ordering is simple, secure, and discreet, and yes, they ship worldwide. Oh, and because you're part of the Wake Up America family, you're going to get a deal. Use code CP10 for 10% off your order, or AP4Liberty for 15% off everything on the site. So just use AP for Liberty. Get the higher discount. So don't wait. Head to shopcpp.com today. That's shopcpp.com. Health and convenience delivered right to your door. And thank you to ShopCPP for supporting the Wake Up America show. We're very glad and grateful. You guys see your the link in the pinned link. You can click on that. Looks like we're almost we're well on the way to the bonus content. We've raised about $40 towards the $75 goal. So if somebody drops a 20 or a 25 in there, then that will unlock the bonus content. You can watch that before John Miltimore gets here. At 8 a.m. Central Time, we're going to have John Miltimore on the show. He'll talk about these topics and more. This week, we are going to be in Washington, D.C. together, so don't forget, Wednesday and Thursday, guys, no Wake Up America show, but we will be live Friday morning in Washington, D.C., so you will be able to watch. It will be a little bit of a pared down stream because I won't be able to bring all of my podcast equipment with me, but you will be able to watch the show Friday morning, and we'll have a special guest, and it will be from Washington, D.C. We're going to have an absolute blast. I just can't wait to see so many of you guys there this week. I can't believe it's already happening. So look for a Thursday morning. We're going to meet in the cafeteria at the U.S. Capitol in Washington, D.C. It's going to be awesome. Can't wait to see many of you all there. And for those who can't come, we will miss you very much, but we'll take pictures. And, of course, we'll be back on the Freedom Watch next week, and I'm sure we'll have lots of photos and videos and things like that to share with you guys. All right? All right. Let's talk about the big story. The split between men and women is one of the starkest divisions in American politics right now, and that divide is the deepest in Generation Z, which is taking the traditional gender gap in American politics and stretching it even further than it has ever been. New data from the NBC News Stay Tuned poll powered by SurveyMonkey shows that debates over President Donald Trump, billionaire Elon Musk, and immigration and the state of the country drive the most division between Gen Z men and women. No surprise there. But it's not just pure politics propelling the gender gap. Big divides exist on policies like abortion and broader value questions too. Speaking of values, look at this man who's got his values and his priorities straight. Look at this beautiful man with his bag of Revere's Rebel Roast. If you're hanging out in the chat, you might know this guy. His Jimmy Joe Patty. He just subscribed for a monthly bag of Revere's Rebel Roast. Jimmy Joe Patty. Look at that beautiful man. You see, everybody's talking about ideal male bodies, and they didn't know that this is actually the ideal male form right there. Jimmy Joe Patty holding his Revere's Rebel Roast. Look at that beautiful man. Ladies, go get him. Thank you, Jimmy Joe. In large part, the driver of this trend is Gen Z women, who are more likely to identify as Democrats and take the liberal position in questions across the poll when compared to other generations or the U.S. population as a whole. And the effects of that dramatic split could define American politics for decades if it continues. We're talking about a generational shift, okay? Take Trump's approval rating. Among all adults, 45% say they approve of Trump's job performance and 55% disapprove. Adults between the ages of 18 and 29 grade the president worse than that. 34% approve, 66% disapprove. Again, this is NBC News. Take it with a big, giant grain of Himalayan salt. Lick the salt lamp before you take this to heart. But the difference between young men and women is significant. On this, I'm inclined to believe. While 45% of young men approve of Trump's job performance, only 24% of young women do. That is a 21% difference. That can't just be explained away too easily, guys. It can't just be explained away to say that there's this gap, because this keeps popping up in all of the surveys, and that Generation Z women and Generation Z men are off a cliff when it comes to the difference between them politically and what this means for our future, the future of our country. Well, one can only speculate. I wonder what your thoughts are on it. You can let me know. Drop your comments in the chat. Now, there are gender gaps, and there always have been in every generation, but they are nowhere near as stark as they are with Generation Z. Something has changed. And I'm inviting your feedback. I'd love to hear your thoughts. What is it that you think has changed with Generation Z? Is this a brainwashing thing? I think that's probably what people would jump to immediately, but I wonder if you agree with that. Do you think that is this a problem? Are men supposed to have followed the lemmings off the cliff? I would love to hear the thoughts. I'm sure that there are plenty of left liberal women and MSNBC anchors and pundits from CNN who would gladly and Joy Reid and others who would gladly make the argument that that men were supposed to follow the 20% gap off of the cliff. But again, I don't. The fact that it's so massive, this gender gap, and again, there has always been a gender gap. Women have always been more liberal than men in these surveys, but we've never seen a generation where women have had a 20% gap. Something has clearly changed. Something has clearly made a difference. I'd love to hear what you think it would be, because honestly, on this, I'm out of ideas. You normally watch a Wake Up America show because Austin has lots of opinions and thoughts on things, but quite frankly, I'm at a loss. I'm at a loss, and it's really hard to sympathize with the young ladies these days, especially when you see stories like this. Remember the DC helicopter crash in January that killed 64 people, including 12 children? Yeah, we're starting to get more information on that. They did this exhaustive investigation on this so that, of course, they could try and find out that it was anything other than pilot error. Whoopsie! Now, ladies, you may think I'm going to beat up on you here on this one. Now, please, just be patient. I know, I imagine many of you are conservative ladies out there. You're not liberal ladies. Remember, we're talking about liberal ladies. This is a story about DEI. It turns out that the female pilot who was flying was given multiple warnings and was directly told by her male instructor / co-pilot to turn the opposite direction of the passenger jet to avoid a collision. She ignored him and flew straight into it. Whoopsie! Don't you mansplain to me. This from the investigation. 2 seconds after the controllers cut out instruction about passing behind the jet, Warrant Officer Eves replied, affirming for the second time that the Black Hawk saw the traffic. Pat 25 has the aircraft in sight. Request visual separation, he said. VizSep approved, the controller replied. It was their last communication. The Black Hawk was 15 seconds away from crossing paths with the jet. Warrant Officer Eves then turned his attention to Captain Lobach. He told her he believed that the air traffic control wanted them to turn left towards the East River bank. Turning left would have opened up more space between the helicopter and Flight 5342, which was headed for runway 33 at an altitude of roughly 300 feet. She did not turn left. Yikes. I am no man. She ignored him. Flew straight into it. Yeah, here it is. Quit mansplaining to me. You can't tell me nothing. Yes. Quit mansplaining to me. Well, there will be no one is going to mansplain to her anymore. He told her to turn left, and she didn't listen. And now we're going to have a conversation about it. Is this the same thing? Is this what's going on, ladies? Like, here's my best guess. This is going to make people angry. But my guess is that I actually, in many ways, I think men are to blame for this, because it's the men who are simps. Right? It is. I have seen this so often in corporations that I've worked for. It started, I remember seeing it when I was in college, right? It started happening when I was in like high school and middle school, but there began to be this culture of never telling a woman that she's wrong, never correcting her, never suggesting that she can do any wrong. There was always this whole, it's not your fault, everything's beautiful, you're a girl boss. What's really strange, too, is this other story that's a bit of a segue here, but about how ChatGPT has apparently gone full sycophant, and it's turned into this whole sycophantic reply system, where it used to be that if there was something wrong with your input, it might correct you, but now it's like if you're doing ChatGPT as therapy, it will never suggest that maybe you're making a bad decision. It will never tell you that you're wrong, and it just reminds me a little bit of some of my, again, anecdotal experience of seeing situations, especially in workplaces, where you just cannot call a woman out for her bad behavior. There has to be an if a woman's bad behavior is harming the community, or it's causing pain in the community, they have this whole system set up where you will make sure you don't hurt her feelings. There's going to be an intervention. It's going to be quiet. It's going to be a place. There's going to be all this flowery language to protect them. And Cecilia, we're going to have one of those for you for daring to leave us. How dare you? Now, Andy thinks that the gender ideology gap can be explained by the disproportionately higher education women are receiving this generation. Well, that would be the brainwashing, right? That would be the brainwashing. And on all of these issues, Generation Z women more likely to consider themselves Democrats. Women are more likely than men to say they're Democrats, but Gen Z, again, has the widest gender gap. 38% of Gen Z men identify as Republican compared to 20% of Gen Z women. The partisan gender gap is wider among Generation Z than any other generation. Frickety in the chat says, many women live a delusion because they can do no wrong. Coachings at work are a pain in the ass. So many tears. Yes. I saw this great video the other day of this girl who was acting like it was a skit, and this one chick is acting like a psychopath and like saying to her boyfriend, you have to delete every woman in your phone and it could be only me. And he's like, not what, even my mother? And she's like, especially your mother, blah, blah, blah. And then these two chicks are watching at the party, watching like her like get broken up with and stuff. And she says, we should say something to her that will ruin her life forever. Yeah, let's destroy her. And they walk up, they go, hey, Jenny, and like, hi, yes. We just wanted to say, we saw that you got broken up with, and we just want to say that you are totally in the right. There's nothing wrong with you. Everything that you've done is totally perfect. You can't call them out. But I just love that the message was that if they wanted to ruin their fellow female's life, that just tell them that they're totally not crazy, that their behavior is normal, and that you're a girl boss. Yes, Queen Slay, right? It's this permissiveness, right? Stephanie and I have been talking about this a lot, especially because we're talking about, how to raise our daughter. Like, and I will ostensibly be the enforcer, right? We're going to have to work together for discipline. But when the law comes in, and I'm sure, when Hazel gets older, she'll step out of line like any kid does and test her barriers. But I'm sure she'll probably, just like her mom, sweet and mild and kind. And, dad will only ever maybe have to raise his voice a couple of times. But you never know. And I think that, permissiveness is a big problem in our society. And I see examples all the time of kids who are actually suffering because of permissiveness, and not just girls, but boys too. But I see it a lot of times, especially with young women. And now that I'm a teacher and I'm teaching martial arts classes and stuff, who the ones who act up in class? It's not the boys. The boys actually are the best behaved. It's the girls who are all over the place. Where are they at? Ladies, hello, wake up, and maybe they don't want to be there because maybe karate is more of a guy coded kind of a thing or something like that. But I remember, and I've been doing martial arts for like 25 years. 25 years ago or 20 years ago when I first started doing this, I would see young girls in martial arts really dedicated, building themselves up. And now, and like in the last 5 to 7 to 8 years in my martial arts journey, and especially now that I'm teaching, it's actually many times the young girls who are not paying attention, who man, if you correct them and something, they've never seen it. Some of these kids, like these young girls, I correct them and tell them that they're out of line and get stern and get strict with them. It's amazing the look on their faces. You can tell that they've never had that before. That they've just never had somebody discipline them. Right. And that permissiveness, well, that's good that they bring them to my class because everybody's going to get whipped in my shape. Male, female, transgender, doesn't matter. In AP's karate class, I cannot tell you how many kids have been crying. I don't enjoy making children cry, but I will bring them to class Wednesday nights. You've got a kid that's a little bit too permissive. But I wonder what your thoughts on it are, guys. Send us a text. We haven't unlock the bonus content. We're so close, though. All we've got to do is raise $25 more, and you will unlock it, which means that you guys get to watch the Wake Up America show's commercials instead of the awesome bonus content mini documentary. But don't you want to watch our awesome 5-minute Lego mini documentary about a lost civilization, or not civilization, lost city that's been found in Central America out in the jungles thanks to a new technology? It's an amazing, brand new mini documentary. If we unlock it by the end of the show, then you get to watch that instead of commercials. If we don't unlock it, it goes away forever and nobody gets to see it. So do the world a favor, be generous, support the Wake Up America show with the bonus content program by either dropping a Rumble rant or going to 4libertyshop.com. That's the number 4libertyshop.com. Go to 4libertyshop.com and we'll be right back on the Wake Up America show on the 4 Liberty Network. Founding fathers dreamed of liberty. They forgot one thing: coffee. Introducing Founding Flavors Coffee, the brew that built America and the brew that's fueling a new revolution, one kitchen at a time. Small batch roasted, Patriot approved, and disappearing faster than a red coat at Yorktown. Don't get left behind, soldier. Real patriots are starting their mornings with Founding Flavors. And trust us, freedom tastes better with a fresh cup in your hand. Stop drinking those tyrant brews who take your money and don't support your values. Stocks are limited, demand is booming, and your morning deserves a taste of liberty. Order now at 4libertyshop.com before the next shipment gets signed, sealed, and sold out. Founding Flavors Coffee, the official brew of morning rebellions everywhere. Get yours at 4libertyshop.com.
Are you tired of the strange radioactive effects of leftist culture? Do you ever wonder what happened to good old-fashioned American values? Well, fear no more, because there's a new force fighting back against the cultural rot of today. Introducing Culturama, a right-of-center talk show that's taking back the future today. Hosted by none other than blonde bombshell herself, Daniela Pensack. She's not just talking, she's taking culture back. With sharp takes, brilliant guests, and a few surprises along the way. Tune in to the live video podcast twice a week, because the future doesn't have to be weird. It can be Culturama.
If there wasn't going to be somebody who was a fiery champion of liberty, somebody who would get out there and who would be aggressive, and if they wouldn't do it with more fire or passion than I had, then I would go and I would fight this battle for us. I've fought for the principles that we all share. Parties tend to be secondary to me. We're here because we believe in the principles of liberty. I am not a perfect messenger, but I think I'm a damn good one. This is a replica of our first president's flintlock pistol. You have my full support, my respect, and my gun.
I think that the heart of my philosophy is much more libertarianism than well, that's the fashionable word these days, I guess. A conservative is no longer just that. He's a libertarian and always has been.
Yet any time you and I question the schemes of the do-gooders, we're denounced as being against their humanitarian goals. They say we're always against things, we're never for anything.
What is fascism? Fascism is private ownership, private enterprise, but total government control and regulation.
Well, the trouble with our liberal friends is not that they're ignorant. It's just that they know so much that isn't so. If we lose freedom here, there's no place to escape to. This is the last stand on earth. This is the issue of this election. Whether we believe in our capacity for self-government or whether we abandon the American Revolution and confess that a little intellectual elite in a far distant capital can plan our lives for us better than we can plan them ourselves.
The conservative, so-called, is the one that says less government, get off my back, get out of my pocket, and let me have more control of my own destiny.
Do you hate the deep state? Do you reject the Antichrist in all his ways? Do you believe that aliens controlled LBJ to assassinate John F. Kennedy? Did you know that the shot can put chemicals in you that will make you more sensitive to 5G? Do you love America? Do you want more freedom? Do you like smoking hot red-headed libertarians? Then the AP for Liberty shop is for you! Check out all the awesome new merch and have a happy new year! Fight the deep state, reject the Antichrist. Visit AP for Liberty shop and get your patriotic merchandise now, or the deep state wins.
When the Founding Fathers dreamed of liberty, they forgot one thing: coffee. Introducing Founding Flavors Coffee, the brew that built America, and the brew that's fueling a new revolution, one kitchen at a time. Small batch roasted, Patriot approved, and disappearing faster than a redcoat at Yorktown. Don't get left behind, soldier. Real patriots are starting their mornings with Founding Flavors, and trust us, freedom tastes better with a fresh cup in your hand. Stop drinking those tyrant brews who take your money and don't support your values. Stocks are limited, demand is booming, and your morning deserves a taste of liberty. Order now at forlibertyshop.com before the next shipment gets signed, sealed, and sold out. Founding Flavors Coffee, the official brew of morning rebellions everywhere. Get yours at forlibertyshop.com.
When I look at some of the things that are being published, there was a story 10 days ago that said this is the worst April for the stock market since the Great Depression. 10 days later, the NASDAQ is now up on the month of April And I haven't seen a story that says, "Oh, stock market has its biggest bounce back ever." So I think
it certainly has gone back and forth.
I think a lot of this is media driven.
Or maybe it's because you backed off the tariffs. Good morning, Rise and Freedom. I'm Austin. How are you the Secretary of the Treasury and you don't know that the stock market crashed because of the tariffs, and now the stock market recovered because you took off the tariffs? I don't know. Maybe I'm the idiot. You know what, John Miltimore, bring me in. I'm going to bring him in. Maybe he'll tell me I'm stupid. Am I the idiot? Maybe this is the Secretary of Treasury. He's got all the credentials. He's literally, the Alexander Hamilton of our times, John Miltimore. Welcome to the show. Thanks for being here. But I'm the stupid one. He's the brilliant genius who knows how to manage an economy, and I don't know jack squat. John, welcome to the show.
Hey, good being with you, AP. How you doing today?
Okay. He said, Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent, he says that I saw an article 10 days ago. It was the worst April since the Great Depression. And it was, and then the economy came roaring back. Why did the economy come roaring back, John?
Well, yeah, we know that the tariff threat was withdrawn. Let me just say, though, like guys like Bessent, Stephen Moore, I don't envy them being in this position. They have an impossible job. And Bessent is being politically smart here. It's kind of the Republican playbook now. When all else fails, attack the media, right? And so that's smart. He can say this is all a media-driven narrative. The reality is Trump, unveiled a tariff policy that outdid Smoot-Hawley. It terrified markets. We're seeing that markets it's pretty fascinating because this is something we had an article on this earlier this month. I thought it was a brilliant insight. And it said like James Madison didn't foresee that the market itself is a great check on power. And that's what we're witnessing. The Supreme Court can't really do much here. Congress ceded its authority, gave the president this broad authority to unilaterally do what he wants with tariffs. You have a president that loves tariffs. You can go back and read things. Trump hates trade. I saw something about this. It comes from the Bob Woodward book, and there's a great anecdote where Trump is talking in the margins of a speech. He writes, "Trade is bad." Trump doesn't like trade. He doesn't appreciate all the things that trade does that makes us wealthy. There's a hostility to it. And guys like Bessent are not as hostile to trade as Trump. And they did persuade him that if you want to go down this road, we are going to have economic destruction. The markets spooked Trump. He reversed policy. I think you'll see him eventually. He's going to still kind of play his game with China. There's going to be some back and forth. There's going to be real pain with those China tariffs. And he'll probably declare victory around that at some point. But right now, you can see it in the markets. You can see it in consumer confidence. What people don't realize, you can go. We can measure, uncertainty in markets and policy, and it was higher than at, the 2008 financial crisis. It was higher than COVID. Okay, like early April. And all of that had markets rattled. People were selling. Now we're seeing the pendulum come back. And the bounce back is good. We're not, there's still a lot. We're down. And we're still looking at, we're in some bad territory here. But hopefully, consumer confidence is regaining and we can, the waters are getting a little bit smoother going forward.
I've got another clip from him I want to have you react to. Take a listen to this.
You're not going to tell the person on the other side of the negotiation where you're going to end up. And nobody's better at creating this leverage than President Trump. He's shown the high tariffs, and here's the stick. This is where the tariffs can go. And the carrot is come to us, take off your tariffs, take off your non-tariff trade barriers, stop manipulating your currency, stop subsidizing labor and capital, and then we can talk. But I tell you, Martha, that we've had several of these Asian countries that come in and said, oh, well, we'll stop doing this, this, and this. And I look at these lists, and I think, how did we get here? How did we get here? Because this trading system has been so unfair. And as President Trump says, I don't blame the countries. I blame the previous administrations that let them get away with it.
Okay, that's interesting take there. There's a lot to go through, and if you're not sort of keen on the economic terms he's using there, he says that other countries are subsidizing capital and they're subsidizing labor. Your reaction?
We do all those things as well. Like everything Trump complains about, the U.S. government is doing as well. We subsidize all these industries too. People could look at us in EVs saying, well, the U.S. is using unfair trade practices, right? Like we're trying to build EVs, but they have all these subsidies and government grants and things that help give them an edge in the EV market. And go down the list. You can go down with tariffs, with non-trade barriers, all these things. We have ways to measure these things. United States has a surprisingly high tariff wall. Like people think of us as a beacon of free trade. We're about 60th in the country when you measure us for free trade. Look at all the things that we have tariffs for. You can sugar extremely high. We have high tariffs on certain metals. Dairy is very high. So we play a lot of the same games too. This idea that we're just getting cheated over and over and over. Again, I think that makes great politics. I think it kind of taps into people's resentment and think like we're being cheated. Fairness is very important to human beings. Like we can see even chimpanzees, let's just say primates overall. Chimps see when they're being cheated, like when somebody else gets more than them. You can see it in toddlers that are like 15 months old. They understand fairness. So when you use the fairness argument in tariffs, it's smart politically. Everyone is like, well, we just want to be treated the same, and that's something that Americans, even the most reasonable people I talk to, they say, I just want the same one, this reciprocal tariffs. That's not what's going on here. The tariffs that Trump implemented were not reciprocal. I think people need to understand that first. Like there was this idea that if you look at that formula that was drawn up, it wasn't even with tariffs. It was with the trade deficit, right? This idea that the United States is purchasing all this stuff and people are dumping things into our countries. So we have a trade deficit. Well, if you look, we're a very rich country. It makes sense that we're going to buy more things from Vietnam than Vietnam is going to buy from us. Are there things that could be improved as far as free trade? Of course. Like there are some things but it starts with a president that actually cares about free trade. And I'll go back to what I said before. I think Trump looks at trade is a bad thing. And if you listen to J.D. Vance, it's the same thing. Like they want this manufacturing renaissance. Like we're going to bring these good factory jobs back. And if you look at the jobs, we have a lot of these jobs here today. This idea that these great manufacturing jobs are really great high-paying jobs. Look at what they're making on in assembly line, at some of these car plants. It's about $20 an hour. So I think they're tapping into the nostalgia for this, era when the dad went off to work with his lunch pail and did his 8 hours and came back and mom was waiting. There is a reason that a lot of Americans are nostalgic. Things are bad in a lot of places, but don't blame trade for that. Like trade has made this country and Americans very wealthy.
All right, I've got a new story, a new angle that we're going to take on this one. This is from a poll that I pulled from NBC. The story came out just yesterday. This is the the gender gap when it comes to political viewpoints. And I don't have a good answer for why I think this is happening. Young men and women are taking the gender gap to staggering new levels. The gulf between Generation Z men and women on political and cultural issues is far wider than it is in older generations. So, John, there's always been a gender gap. Women have always been a little bit more liberal than men in every generation. But something has dramatically changed, because this is not the first poll that has showed this, that young women, by something like 20 percentage points over Generation Z men, are choosing to be Democrats, are choosing more extreme leftist political views. What would you attribute this to? What's your take on it?
Yeah, I don't want to oversimplify it, because the answer I'm going to give you is an oversimplification. But if I was going to ask you, what's the difference between Gen Z women going to college and Gen Z men going to college? It's pretty close to that, right? So I think that's at least one big part of this. This broader divide that you're talking about is that you have all these young women that are going to universities, and while they're there, I think a lot of them are being exposed to some pretty radical and bad ideas, and not just bad ideas, bad cultures, where you just kind of soak in a lot of neo-Marxist woke nonsense, and it pollutes their brains. And it's doing the same thing to young men. Don't get me wrong, but there's fewer men going to college. I don't want to like look at college and just say college bad, right? You have young people that go into college, they get good degrees, they come out, they get good jobs, but you kind of have to go in with a mindset, with a foundation. If you go in there as a blank slate, you might come out as an NPC, as they say, right? So I think that's one thing. A lot of young men, for whatever reason, are saying, I don't need to go to college for that, and they're going this way. And the women that go to college go this way, and then they go and try to date each other, and it's like they're talking. You got the men on Mars and the women on Venus.
But in the educational system, I think the fact that so many more women are going to higher education compared to men is definitely a factor. But there's got to be more factors, like you said, multi-factor. There's got to be more things that are at work here other than just higher education. Is it that women are more likely to watch the mainstream media, for example, and they're going to get
That's
those
one
points of
example.
views?
But look where the parties stand today. You have this right-wing party that's rising. That's very like the left would call it fascist. The right would call it more individualistic, maybe stronger, right? Like Trump uses the language of a strong party. He hates weaklings. He hates losers, right? So you have the right going in that direction. The left is the more compassionate party, right? Like they care about people. Like we're not going to just, we care about the poor. Now, I'm going to say like a lot of those leftist policies are bad for the poor, and I think you can make a strong argument for that. But it's this perception that the left care about people, the right just want to be strong, and those are characteristics that the parties have adopted. And you can see where I'm going with this. Some people say, "Oh, men and women are just the same." Men and women we're all the same. Like our genitalia doesn't matter, our chromosomes don't matter. Well, I don't believe that. I think by nature that men are going to be more drawn to the right, the strong party, and women are going to be more drawn to this compassionate, caring, loving party, as they see it. So I think that's a big part of this too. Like the parties are further apart maybe than they've been in my lifetime. I'll say that. If you go back to the 1980s, 1990s, there were differences in the parties, right? But they were more policy driven. Like you didn't have these polarizing figures on the top. And Trump is a polarizing figure. You can say, I love that guy or I hate that guy, but he's a very polarizing figure. The left is kind of leaderless today, but their ideas are certainly far, we'll say they're radical. Like they're very radical by traditional American party standards.
What's the solution? I mean, there's got to be some way to counteract this. Because I think that this is the kind of thing that's going to cause generational damage. I mean, I don't know how you begin to solve a problem like this, but just get more men into college or get fewer women into college. I can't even begin to think of what a solution to something like this might look like. Can you?
I'm going to give you this terrible kind of libertarian, non-interventionist answer. I don't think there's a solution to this problem, not an easy one. I would say the best thing people can do, start thinking for yourself, using your own brain. Stop listening to what everybody else is saying. Stop trusting everything you read on media. I know that's one of the things you're talking about today. I am frankly a bit terrified by what I see people believe today that's out there. And if you look, Gen Z is the worst. And I feel bad. Gen Z, there was a new study. I can't remember where I saw it. It might have been in something in the Atlantic. But they were talking Gen Z is the most gullible generation. And like they can't separate fact from fiction. They can't separate, satire. They can't recognize. They're the most gullible generation. I think there's reasons for that. I think it's our education system sucks. Like you have young people today that they just don't know as much as they should, but they're unaware of it. They think they have all this knowledge. And that's a problem too. If you think you know so much because you have Google and you have these things that make you smart, that makes you, susceptible to these things. It's not all their fault. Like they live in this new age of digital media, and they go and they see something on TikTok and they think it's real. I go with my kids and they tell me stuff. I'm like, do you think that really happened? They're like, oh, it might be a sports trade or it might be this. And my kids are like, I'm like, do you really think that's true? And they're like, well, how'd you know that was fake? And you develop a radar for this, if you're discerning. I don't see a lot of discerning people there, and I hope my kids eventually get that. Like, okay, like there's a lot of BS out there. Gen Z is going to have a hard time navigating that for a variety of reasons. But I'll just add one more, and it's not just Gen Z. I see baby boomers and Gen X people. They want to believe what they see online. They're not looking for the truth. They're looking to find the narrative that supports what they want to believe and the facts that support what they want to believe. And I'm going through this with some of my friends on the right on the due process stuff. Their answers are always changing. Like some are like, well, I don't care. It's an illegal immigrant. Like why should they have rights? And I'm like, at least they're saying that. Some are under this fiction that these illegal immigrants, the people that are here illegally, that, oh no, Trump's not. There's no habeas corpus issue there. And I say, well, look, there's a difference between deporting someone and then taking that person, deporting them, and putting them in a prison in El Salvador, and not charging them. That's a big deal in my mind. But I've had all these conversations with people on the right, and they don't want to think that's actually happening. They're like, well, they broke the law. I'm like, well, if they broke the law, you need to charge them, right?
So that you're talking about this judge who was arrested by the White House for harboring an illegal alien, right?
I wasn't talking about that case so much as the policy of deporting people and putting them, again, if people are here on law, the government has great latitude to deport people. And you don't, this idea like, oh, everybody needs a trial or something. No, nobody's saying that. That's kind of a straw man. The Department of Justice has great latitude to hold kind of pro forma hearings and get people moving quickly. Not everyone needs a trial. But if you're going to take that person and put them in prison, right, that's a different animal. And for people that you're going to put in prison, they need to be charged. And to put them in prison without a charge, to me, is a grave violation of our natural rights or anyone's natural rights. This judge issue is different. Hey, I haven't looked at the details of that story closely. I looked at enough. If any person is, if they're going to be harboring illegal immigrants and breaking federal laws in that way, I'm not surprised. A judge should not have a different standard than anyone else, I guess is what I'm saying.
No one is above the law.
We heard that for all the last 4 years. If the judge should be treated like everyone else. If this was because if the administration is coming after her for some opinion they didn't like and they found out, again, all those details matter. But if the judge is breaking federal laws by hiding people that the administration is going after, I'm not surprised that she was charged for this. It's very different than putting a judge into prison because she wrote an opinion you don't like, or that and I think some people though were kind of framing it as that in a good way. If you look at some of these accounts on Twitter, they're happy that the Trump administration arrested this judge, and I think they're implying that she disagreed with the administration on these immigration issues, and that would be a very bad thing. You don't go arresting judges because they wrote opinions you don't like.
One last question before we let you go. Any thoughts on the Bill Belichick sugar daddy, 24-year-old he's dating that's trending on X right now? Any strong opinions about that?
Well,
talk about a gender gap.
Yeah, no, I gotta say, hey, the young woman, she's very attractive. You could be a prude in this sense and say, oh, an old man shouldn't, be with a younger woman. What if it was revert? You can play all these games. My first instinct to that, I felt bad for Bill Belichick, because if I'm in my prime and I'm go, I get the draw to an older man and a younger woman. I watched some of these videos of her on the football field next to him with a clipboard and things. I'm like, this is just silly.
Yeah,
it looked bad. I think Belichick's damaging his legacy. There's that somebody was.
Don't you think though that if you're like in Bill Belichick's, you're like, I've already got an amazing legacy. Everybody's going to remember me for football. In 50 years after I'm dead, nobody's going to be talking about that. But at least I'm going to get some hot, sweet.
Yeah, that's sort of, you can see that's what he's thinking. And
he's like, I'll give up. He's like, let me trade a little bit of my legacy. I'll give you like 10% just so that I can have a nice, somebody keep my bed warm.
the video I was talking about where it's her on the field and Bill kind of like just swooning. Somebody's like, there's a word for that, and we call it whipped. And there was, like another word that went with it. But I think that's what we're looking at. I think, Bill Belichick's whipped. Hey, he's a grown man, make your own decisions. But as a guy who, I got a picture with Bill Belichick. Me and Bill met at the White House years ago. I've always been a Bill Belichick fan. He's a great no-nonsense coach. But I was a little sad to see him. But again, like I said, he's an old man, and he has the freedom to do whatever he wants to do.
That's right, free country, at least for a little while. John Miltimore from the American Institute of Economic Research. We love you on Mondays with Miltimore. Thank you so much for being a regular guest on the show. Is there anything else you'd like to share with our audience before we let you go?
Yeah, like I said, every week check out my work at The Take by John Miltimore on Substack. I'm publishing there all the time, and all of our work at the American Institute for Economic Research. Check out thedailyeconomy.org.
The beacon is lit. Gondor calls for aid, and John Miltimore answers the call. We appreciate you, John. Have a wonderful day.
Hey, you too, AP. Have a good week.
Do you feel like you were treated with dignity and respect when you were let go by Robert Kraft?
Yeah, well, it was a mutual decision for us to part ways.
He said fired.
It was a mutual decision.
The other change for Belichick is 24-year-old Jordan Hudson, his creative muse, as he writes in his book.
Ow!
Jordan was a constant presence during our interview.
You have Jordan right over there. Everybody in the world seems to be following this relationship. They've got an opinion about your private life. It's got nothing to do with them, but they're invested in it. How do you deal with that?
Never been too worried about what everybody else thinks. Just try to do what I feel like is best for me and what's right.
How did you guys meet?
Not talking about this.
No?
No.
Excuse me?
It's a topic neither one of them is comfortable commenting on, though Hudson has recently posted about it on Instagram.
You joined InstaFace, as you put it. I love that. There's some great pictures of you and Jordan, where you're a fisherman and she's a mermaid. Charming. It's a different side of you. What's the reaction?
What's it been like?
To have these different sort of photos. There's another one where you're doing, I know you're not into meditation or yoga or Pilates. You're balancing Jordan on your feet. She's doing kind of the Titanic pose.
That, bro.
Yeah, so I'm on some of those social media platforms, but I honestly don't follow them.
What he does follow isn't clicks or views, but touchdowns and, above all, wins.
You seem like you're having a lot more fun these days than you were in other chapters of your life, let's say.
I enjoy football. I enjoy the whole process of it. It's hard to win.
And clapping those cheeks. Clapping those cheeks, Bill. Don't forget. Jordan was a constant presence during our interview. I love this part right here.
Jordan was a constant presence during our interview.
Listen to this. Jordan, right over there.
Everybody in the world seems to be following this relationship. They've got an opinion about your private life.
Look at her. She's like managing this interview. 24 years old.
Nothing to do with them, but they're invested in it. How do you deal with that?
Never been too worried about what everybody else thinks. Just try to do what I feel like is best for me and what's right.
How did you guys meet?
Not talking about this.
I'm going to tell you guys how they met, okay? Let's go over to SugarDaddyMeat.com. Good morning, Pineapples. Welcome to the Wake Up America show. I'm your host, Austin Peterson. We've got 30 more minutes on the Wake Up America show, and we are so close to unlocking the bonus content to see the mini documentary. Wouldn't you like to see a pep or two? Go to forlibertyshop.com this morning. Visit the For Liberty shop. Since summer's on its way, guys, it's time to grab yourself a Gulf of America beach towel. If you go to forlibertyshop.com, you'll see our Summer of Freedom collection right there at the very top. You can get men's tank tops, women's bikinis, tumblers, one-piece swimsuits, Afuera tank tops. Those people are very suspiciously familiar looking there. The Javier Milei Afuera tank tops, quite popular. Must be a Latin American thing. But if you go to forlibertyshop.com, that's the number 4, libertyshop.com, you'll see our Summer of Freedom collection there at the very top. What are our customers saying? They're giving us hundreds of reviews. and telling us how much they love the Wake Up America show's products. If you want to read all of our reviews, you can actually see them there at the very top. If you're on a browser, click reviews. If you're on a phone, you'll have to go to your mobile menu. You'll have to click on the hamburger menu, that is. So Tamara over in Georgia, verified reviews, remember, third-party verified, said that it's her husband's favorite coffee, that electric elixir. We don't buy anything else now. It's delicious. It's nutritious. It's Franklin's Electric Elixir. The Ew Government t-shirt, people really love. They laugh. Revere's Rebel Roast, our friends like James Conley and others love it. Doge Field Agent t-shirts, trucker hats. Check out all of our reviews at our website, forlibertyshop.com. Out of 305 verified reviews, we have 4.8 out of 5 stars average. So visit forlibertyshop.com. Check out the Gulf of America collection as well. And if you're interested in hanging out with us in Washington, D.C., we do have 2 more adult tickets available. The APDC Liberty Tour this week. Going to be in Washington, D.C. You, me, and a bunch of people makes 3, 4, 5. There's going to be like 22 of us so far. So we've got 2 more tickets available, and you can bring your kids. It's family friendly. Go to forlibertyshop.com. And if you just want to find out what we're doing, then again, head over to the shop and click on the tour base package. You can see all of the fun stuff that we're going to be doing this week. And then this weekend, of course, is Revolutionary War weekend in Washington, D.C. So it's going to be a lot of fun, a total blast. Help us to unlock that bonus content, guys. Head to For Liberty Shop. Oh, looks like we did it. We unlocked the bonus content. We unlocked the bonus content, guys. So I hope that you guys love it, appreciate it, and enjoy it, because Andy Opperman just hit that last part for you. So enjoy it, guys. We'll see you guys when we get back after the Flippity Flip. 2024, a Mayan megacity was discovered in Campeche, Mexico. Swallowed by the rainforest, this lost urban center contained pyramids, plazas, amphitheaters, and highways. But this discovery wasn't made by a team of seasoned explorers hacking through the rainforest with machetes. It was made by a PhD student, and he found it by accident. I was on something like page 16 of a Google search and found a laser survey done by a Mexican organization for environmental monitoring. Luke Auld Thomas, who is pursuing his doctorate at Tulane University, explained to the BBC in October. That overlooked, decade-old survey contained groundbreaking information hidden in plain sight. The survey used light detection and ranging LiDAR technology, a remote sensing method that sends thousands of laser pulses from an aircraft to map objects buried beneath vegetation. The system measures how long it takes for the signals to bounce back, creating a detailed 3D image of the landscape. Now named Valeriana, this lost metropolis is believed to be one of the densest Mayan cities ever discovered. At its peak, between 740 and 850 AD, it may have housed anywhere from 30,000 to 50,000 people, more than the region's population today. Over 6,000 buildings were identified, ranging from homes to towering pyramids. The larger of Valeriana's 2 monumental precincts has all the hallmarks of a classic Mayan political capital: enclosed plazas connected by a broad causeway, temple pyramids, a ball court, a reservoir formed by damming an arroyo, a seasonal watercourse, said Auld Thomas in findings published in the journal Antiquity. LiDAR is revolutionizing archaeology, allowing researchers to peer through thick rainforest canopies without setting foot in the jungle. The technology has helped identify hundreds of thousands of structures in Mayan cities across southern Mexico and northern Guatemala. More than just revealing lost cities, these findings challenge a long-held belief that the Maya civilization was composed mainly of small, isolated villages. LiDAR has instead uncovered a vast, interconnected network of cities, roads, and infrastructure, suggesting an advanced society with extensive trade routes and economic cooperation. LiDAR also revealed parts of an extensive network of elevated highways, massive causeways built centuries before modern roads. Some stretched up to 131 feet wide, connecting cities across vast distances. "They're the world's first superhighway system that we have," said Richard D. Hansen, an archaeologist and now an adjunct professor of anthropology at the University of Utah. These long-distance trade routes can be traced by following the cities that were interacting and exchanging not only goods, but also ideas, says Krista Schieber de la Vereda, head of the Tacalic Abaj National Archaeological Park in Guatemala. One such route stretched from Tabasco in the Gulf of Mexico, winding through Tehuantepec and Chiapas, continuing along the Pacific coast of Guatemala, and reaching as far as El Salvador. According to Schieber, these routes, which operated for centuries, can be compared to the Silk Road during the time of the Roman Empire. But trade wasn't just about moving goods from one city to another. There are also invisible traces of raw materials used in products that combine multiple components, some sourced from different locations than the place of production, Schieber explains. These traces reveal an entire chaîne opératoire, production chain, involved in creating the final product. One example comes from jade production in Guatemala. Archaeological evidence from Canquén suggests that raw jade was transported hundreds of kilometers to be processed into preforms, partially worked pieces that were then exported somewhere else for refinement. Canquén wasn't just a city, but a hub in a broader regional trade network, where valuable materials were moved and transformed before reaching their final destinations. The discoveries are reshaping our understanding of the Maya civilization. Settlements once thought to be regional capitals have been revealed as mere suburbs of even larger metropolises. What seemed like natural hills have turned out to be long-lost pyramids. Ravines have been identified as remnants of ancient human-made structures. And what was considered simple trade has emerged as a far-reaching import-export system. Yet these findings only hint at the full scale. The vastness of Mayan cities, the sophistication of their infrastructure, and the complexity of their trade networks suggest that much of their world remains hidden beneath centuries of overgrowth. As researchers continue scanning unexplored regions, they expect to find even more lost cities, rewriting what we know about one of pre-modern history's most advanced civilizations.
You have the right to remain silent. If you give the right to remain silent, anything you do, say, can, and will be used in court against you. Are you doing good back there? Don't say that right now. I said don't say that right now, because Americans being recorded right now.
1 hour later, his colleague had to free him from a locked car. He got himself in the back. He got in the back of the car with the lady of ill repute, and then his colleague had to come and free him.
I can't get out of here.
Okay.
And then that's when she was able to sit up here, and then I told her you stay there, blah blah blah. And then I was just like hunkered down like this on my side. You have the right to remain silent. If you give the right to remain silent, anything you do, say, can, and will be used in court against you. Are you doing good back there?
2024, a Mayan megacity. Boom. Welcome to the Wake Up America show. Entropy Nomad's like, this is an old clip. So what? It's funny, right? I'm just trying to give you guys a good laugh. Start the week. So many news stories that I read is just so depressing and so boring. So, you know, you got to spice it up a little bit, sex it up a little bit, make everybody feel good. I mean, you know, I've got clips that I could play that are good news stories that are going to make sure that you're informed. But every once in a while, you got to play a funny little clip, you know? You just wanted to have a face-to-face private conversation, right, Brad? Yes. He was having his spear polished. And someone else.
We begin tonight with the escalation in the president's crackdown on illegal immigration.
Today's dramatic escalation in the Trump administration's conflict with judges.
The Trump administration signaling a major escalation in its deportation efforts.
Today, an escalation in the Trump administration's battle with the judiciary.
Tensions between local and federal authorities over President Trump's immigration crackdown escalated today.
We begin this hour with a major escalation of the Trump administration's crackdown Immigration is.
We begin with what appears to be a major escalation in the Trump administration's deportation efforts.
And what is a major escalation in the battle here in D.C. over immigration and deportation?
This feels like an insane and reckless escalation from the Trump administration arresting a judge. I will tell you, you are not alone.
Is a dramatic escalation.
More aggressive moves, more escalation.
Trump's escalation of his migrant purge.
This kind of escalatory action.
This is a dramatic escalation.
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 Escalation. We've seen an escalation.
Where do you think they got the talking points, guys? Good morning, pineapples. Looking very good and very nice. This clip was recirculating. This is from a debate that 28-year-old Benjamin Netanyahu did back in 1978. And I highly recommend that you watch the entire thing. This debate, more than probably any other article that I've read or podcast that I've listened to or history book that I've ever read, this debate, if anything, probably is what has solidified my moral support for the civilized nation of Israel versus the terrorists that are engaged in war against it. But I want to play this clip to you, and I wonder if it has the same impact on you. Now, I would recommend, again, that you watch the entire debate, not just not necessarily out of context, but partially out of context, clip from this debate in 1978.
Let me quote you what the PLO Information Office said in a Dutch paper in 1977, in May 5th.
77?
May 5th, 1977, yes. The statement was very simple. Our objective remains the destruction of the Zionist state of Israel. So let's keep in mind that what we're talking about here is not the attempt to build a state, but to destroy one.
Do the Palestinians have a right to a separate state?
Now, no one is denying that there are Palestinian Arabs. There's a very distinguished Palestinian Arab sitting right next to them.
There's a part there that was cut out that I think is important for context. So this is why I recommend you watch this entire debate. But Benjamin Netanyahu responds, he says, no, I don't think that they do.
But the Palestinians themselves, in the Palestinian National Covenant, the very first article, say that the people of Palestine, quote, are part of the Arab nation. Well, let's look at the Arab nation. It has 21 states, an area roughly the size of the United States, and 1/6 of the entire world's wealth. Now, add to that the fact that there already exists a Palestinian state, and that is Jordan, 60% of whose population is Palestinian. I think it's quite interesting that Yasser Arafat and King Hussein, who are bitter enemies, agree on one thing, that Jordan is a Palestinian state. So what we're talking about is a demand for a 22nd Arab state and a second Palestinian state.
What should be done with the Palestinians on the West Bank? There's a problem, so what should be done, in your opinion?
Well, I think that the Palestinians in the West Bank are going to be offered the full human rights, the full civil rights, as no Arabs are offered in the Middle East. No Arabs whatsoever have any full human rights or the right to vote for their own government. Those Arabs who lived in Israel in the pre-67 boundaries are the only Arabs in the Middle East who offer that right, and I'm all in favor of having the same Arabs living in the West Bank and the Gaza Strip being offered such a right in the final peace agreement.
Can we have peace in the Middle East?
Very briefly, please.
Yes, I sincerely hope so. Look, I'm 28 years old. I've had to defend my country in 2 wars and in many battles. Nobody wants peace more than Israel. But the stumbling block to the road for peace is this demand for a PLO state, which will mean more war, which will mean more violence in the Middle East. And I sincerely believe, if this demand is abandoned, we can have real and genuine peace.
Yeah, I remember my debate with Dave Smith about a year ago after October 7th that he did specifically advocate for a two-state solution, which is, it's so fascinating that you have the anarchist wing of the libertarian movement in the United States advocating for a new state, a new government to be created, which would be a second Palestinian state at the expense of Israel, in where they are already surrounded by dozens of Arab nations. They are fully and totally surrounded, and then the attempt to create a second state, which would come at their expense, would be essentially a call for war in this Israelis' minds. It's just, I think I grow more and more disillusioned with the modern American libertarian movement as I hear Holocaust denial and anti-Semitism that sounds exactly like the kinds of talking points that you get from leftists that defend Hamas. And then the gaslighting that goes on, and then the emotional blackmail with babies, et cetera, which I just find to be disgusting, but also completely inept in an understanding of the realities of warfare and modern war. But what I really despise is the gaslighting from so many people in this debate that this is not how, that this is happening, it's not happening, or if it is happening, it's a good thing, and here's why you're wrong for calling it out. I don't like having to agree with neocons more than my fellow libertarians because I'm not a neocon, and I disagree with many of neoconservative philosophies. But if you're going to go to war and if you're going to be in the trenches, the last thing that you want is a pussy-ass libertarian who would not defend you because they would sit there and ask you whether or not firing in your own defense is a violation of the non-aggression principle. Do you know what I'm talking about? You'd rather have a neocon who's going to kill.
I will find something that he did that I wouldn't have done, because if I'd have been running the British Empire in 1939, I'd have known exactly how to do it, and I'd have known how to hold the whole thing together, and I'd have kept Stalin back, and he'd have been great at Yalta, and this is...
But I don't think anybody's saying that.
Yeah. Maybe I'm being a little hyperbolic, maybe. But I told him, maybe trying to provoke him a little bit, that I thought Churchill was the chief villain of the Second World War. Now, he didn't kill the most people, he didn't commit the most atrocities, but I believe, and I think when you really get into it and tell the story right and don't leave anything out, you see that he was primarily responsible for that war becoming what it did.
Okay, he was primarily responsible for that war. Thank you for the qualifier there, becoming what it did. That's fascinating because I'm pretty sure, now this is the guy, the premier historian that we're all supposed to be listening to and admiring, and all the, everybody's slobbing this guy's knob, this Daryl Cooper guy. Becoming what it did. Okay. Well, here's the thing. When you're fighting a war, you're supposed to kill more of them than they kill of you. That's the job. That's the solution. You're supposed to make the enemy suffer more than your own people suffer. That's how it works. He's responsible for the war. Does everybody forget that Winston Churchill was brought in to be prime minister after war had already been declared? It's kind of like, the libertarian obsession with hating on Abraham Lincoln, but it was the same situation. Like the South seceded before Abraham Lincoln had a chance to wage war or to make the kinds of concessions that maybe he could have made as president, but they were like, nope. Winston Churchill came in after the war had begun because they had to have somebody in there who could increase morale because war had been declared.
These other guys are all doing the anti-Churchill stuff now.
But he's not doing an anti-Churchill stuff.
What do you mean he's not doing an anti-Churchill stuff, Joe?
The circles I float in, it wasn't that crazy of a thing to say. It's like, yeah, we all know Churchill is the villain. I thought that was common knowledge.
But you can't say...
What day? Is this... Here we are. They're not saying this. Okay, we are saying it, and here's why it's good, and here's why you pointing it out is bad.
He helped his country. I was in London 2 weeks ago. Like, that, they didn't win the war in any meaningful way. Like, he wrecked the country.
No, but the question is, where's the victory? I don't understand. Everyone wants to yell at you for not loving Churchill. Okay, well, show me the victory.
Because we've all been so brainwashed.
Winston Churchill died before Britain turned into a full socialist state. And Winston Churchill had to be brought back because they threw him out of office after the war, and the socialists took over, and then they had to bring him back for a brief period to try and save the country because the socialists had destroyed the United Kingdom. It wasn't Churchill. Churchill had to clean up the mess.
Private school system to believe that, oh, look how great things are. Let me ask you about your country. Do you think that your country has become greater since? Has our country become greater since? Absolutely not.
Brutal war.
Yeah, it was an existential threat.
Oh, boy. God.
Seized Russia. Who knows what the world will look like today.
Right. It's hard to say. Worse, better, we have no idea to know, right?
World War II was perhaps the greatest catastrophe in human history.
No disagreement there.
And the starting point of any discussion about it must be that of all the possible outcomes that could have resulted from events leading up to the conflict, The one that ended up happening was the worst of all.
What the fuck are you talking about? The United States won. We ushered in an era of prosperity that the world has never seen. That's the worst possible situation, that the United States comes out on top?
There still is just the basic facts that it almost couldn't have gone.
Look at the lies. Look at the lies that Dave Smith is engaging in. They lie. They're lying. And you know why? I get it. They're lying to try and support their worldview. I get it. But the truth is that what you should be doing is that when your ideology conflicts with reality, you have to adjust your ideology. Right? It's more important. The truth is more important than maintaining an orthodoxy. But that's not how these people operate. The orthodoxy is more important than the truth.
Sorry, I just have to address that fundamental. You say the outcome of World War II and everything that happened in it was the worst thing that's ever happened. And the worst thing imaginable, worst possible outcome, you said.
No. Just about.
You said worst possible outcome. Let me give you a much worse possible.
Martyr made, the guy just said that. He said that was the outcome of World War II was the worst possible outcome. I thought it was actually pretty damn. Did they not know Operation Torch? Did they not know that Americans were going to land on the beaches in Japan? They were going to invade. That you don't think that millions more American dead would have been a worse outcome?
Hitler wins.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
How about that?
So it's not the worst possible outcome.
I mean,
that's true.
Listen, but Hitler. Yes. Okay. I'm not saying you can't.
Dude, why are there stupid kids running the show?
Dream up a worse outcome.
Do you decide to go, hey, what else have we been lied to? Maybe Churchill wasn't a great guy. Maybe Hitler wasn't such a bad guy. Maybe the Holocaust, etc., etc. And that is exactly
no
what
one is saying Hitler wasn't such a bad guy.
Because I honestly think that Hitler was a good guy based upon my own research, not my public education.
It's not happening.
Some transcribed Hitler speeches in English. Yeah. I was like, oh, this dude's probably racist as shit. He's probably going to say the N-word every... Right now, I was like, oh my God.
He's just very pro-Germany. Like,
listen to what he's talking about, and it's like, fuck, this sounds like the problems we're having today. Like, he was trying to, like, encourage community, encourage, family values, remove the perversion. He wanted to instill more.
Remove the perversion, except for this movement is obsessed with gender mutilation surgeries. Guess who loved to engage in genital mutilation surgeries? If you've never heard of a doctor by the name of Mengele, highly recommend that you look him up.
Morals. I mean, was he a good guy or not? I don't fucking know. I wasn't there, but I was told that he is the worst guy in the fucking history of the world, and that's for sure not true.
Hitler was awesome. Hitler was right, and the Holocaust didn't happen.
I like Hitler. I do not. The Holocaust is not what happened. Let's look at the facts of that. And Hitler has a lot of redeeming qualities.
She said something along the lines of, 6 million Jews died in the Holocaust. And I was like, oh my God, bro, here we fucking.
I'm just so sick of hearing that, you playing along with something that you just know is bullshit.
They experimented on twins. I mean, some of the stories, by the way, sound completely absurd. I mean, like the idea that they just like cut a human up and then sewed them back together. Yeah. Why would you do that? Literally, even if you're the most evil person in the world, that's a tremendous waste of time and supplies. Just slice a person in half and sew them together. That just sounds like bizarre propaganda.
There is a portion of the right across the West that is playing this very dark game, and they're doing it deliberately, and you can't not be aware of that.
Dark times. The gender gap when it comes to young men and young women. The inability for President Trump, and not all his fault, to actually have meaningful cuts to government. The liberty movement decimated, nearly destroyed. For years, right-wingers, especially many libertarians who were underground, they called themselves the remnant. People who still believed in the principles of liberty that built this country. That remnant today grows smaller and smaller and smaller, which means that people like us need to ensure that we're here manning the battlements and circling the wagons and standing tall for American values, economic freedom, personal liberty, God, guns, gold, and girls. A cowboy conservatism, we'll call it. That's what the Wake Up America show stands for. So if you haven't already, please do click that like button. We'd love to have you be a regular guest, so click the follow button as well. Every Monday through Friday from 7 to 9 a.m. Central Time, the Wake Up America show streams live. Don't forget, no show Wednesdays and Thursdays. We're going to be out with hanging out with Cecilia and Amy J. Eves and Quest Fanning and a dozen other people, or more than that, hanging out with us in Washington, D.C. this week. So hope we will see you again tomorrow, because we won't be here on Wednesday. So thanks for unlocking the bonus content. You'll get to see it one more time, and we'll see you guys right back again here tomorrow. Exit through the Grift Shop at forlibertyshop.com. Support the ideas of economic freedom and personal liberty. We'll see you tomorrow on the Wake Up America show on the For Liberty Network. A Mayan megacity was discovered in Campeche, Mexico. Swallowed by the rainforest, this lost urban center contained pyramids, plazas, amphitheaters, and highways. But this discovery wasn't made by a team of seasoned explorers hacking through the rainforest with machetes. It was made by a PhD student, and he found it by accident. I was on something like page 16 of a Google search and found a laser survey done by a Mexican organization for environmental monitoring. Luke Ald Thomas, who is pursuing his doctorate at Tulane University, explained to the BBC in October. That overlooked, decade-old survey contained groundbreaking information hidden in plain sight. The survey used light detection and ranging LiDAR technology, a remote sensing method that sends thousands of laser pulses from an aircraft to map objects buried beneath vegetation. The system measures how long it takes for the signals to bounce back, creating a detailed 3D image of the landscape. Now named Valeriana, this lost metropolis is believed to be one of the densest Mayan cities ever discovered. At its peak, between 740 and 850 AD, it may have housed anywhere from 30,000 to 50,000 people, more than the region's population today. Over 6,000 buildings were identified, ranging from homes to towering pyramids. The larger of Valeriana's two monumental precincts has all the hallmarks of a classic Mayan political capital: enclosed plazas connected by a broad causeway, temple pyramids, a ball court, a reservoir formed by damming an arroyo, a seasonal watercourse, said Ald Thomas in findings published in the journal Antiquity. LiDAR is revolutionizing archaeology, allowing researchers to peer through thick rainforest canopies without setting foot in the jungle. The technology has helped identify hundreds of thousands of structures in Mayan cities across southern Mexico and northern Guatemala. More than just revealing lost cities, these findings challenge a long-held belief that the Maya civilization was composed mainly of small, isolated villages. LiDAR has instead uncovered a vast, interconnected network of cities, roads, and infrastructure, suggesting an advanced society with extensive trade routes and economic cooperation. LiDAR also revealed parts of an extensive network of elevated highways, massive causeways built centuries before modern roads. Some stretched up to 131 feet wide, connecting cities across vast distances. "They're the world's first superhighway system that we have," said Richard D. Hansen, an archaeologist and now an adjunct professor of anthropology at the University of Utah. These long-distance trade routes can be traced by following the cities that were interacting and exchanging not only goods, but also ideas, says Krista Schieber de la Vereda, head of the Tacalic-Abaj National Archaeological Park in Guatemala. One such route stretched from Tabasco in the Gulf of Mexico, winding through Tehuantepec and Chiapas, continuing along the Pacific coast of Guatemala, and reaching as far as El Salvador. According to Schieber, these routes, which operated for centuries, can be compared to the Silk Road during the time of the Roman Empire. But trade wasn't just about moving goods from one city to another. There are also invisible traces of raw materials used in products that combine multiple components, some sourced from different locations than the place of production, Schieber explains. These traces reveal an entire chain operatoire, production chain, involved in creating the final product. One example comes from jade production in Guatemala. Archaeological evidence from Cancun suggests that raw jade was transported hundreds of kilometers to be processed into preforms, partially worked pieces that were then exported somewhere else for refinement. Cancun wasn't just a city, but a hub in a broader regional trade network, where valuable materials were moved and transformed before reaching their final destinations. The discoveries are reshaping our understanding of the Maya civilization. Settlements once thought to be regional capitals have been revealed as mere suburbs of even larger metropolises. What seemed like natural hills have turned out to be long-lost pyramids. Ravines have been identified as remnants of ancient human-made structures. And what was considered simple trade has emerged as a far-reaching import-export system. Yet these findings only hint at the full scale. The vastness of Mayan cities, the sophistication of their infrastructure, and the complexity of their trade networks suggest that much of their world remains hidden beneath centuries of overgrowth. As researchers continue scanning unexplored regions, they expect to find even more lost cities, rewriting what we know about one of pre-modern history's most advanced civilizations. When the Founding Fathers dreamed of liberty, they forgot one thing: coffee. Introducing Founding Flavors Coffee, the brew that built America, and the brew that's fueling a new revolution, one kitchen at a time. Small batch roasted, Patriot approved, and disappearing faster than a red coat at Yorktown. Don't get left behind, soldier. Real patriots are starting their mornings with Founding Flavors, and trust us, freedom tastes better with a fresh cup in your hand. Stop drinking those tyrant brews who take your money and don't support your values. Stocks are limited, demand is booming, and your morning deserves a taste of liberty. Order now at forlibertyshop.com before the next shipment gets signed, sealed, and sold out. Founding Flavors Coffee, the official brew of morning rebellions everywhere. Get yours at forlibertyshop.com.